Hey there guys, welcome back to the channel. How the hell have we not covered Krenko Mob Boss in Commander Deck Tech? He is like one of the most basic, I think he is the most popular red commander, I think. King of Goblins, absolute chat of them. So if you haven't seen Krenko before, go 4 mana Goblin, 3/3, you tap him, you create X Goblin tokens equal to ones you already have. You are just doubling your Goblin presence on the board just by turning him to Beyblade, just letting it rip hard as you can. He's a simple commander to play. Basically, you put goblins into play, you make more goblins. If you couldn't win by throwing goblins into the problem, you weren't meant to win that game. So let's get into it. So a couple easy wins in the deck. The new Strixhaven Stadium, pretty much any token based deck is going to love it. At worst, it's a mana rock, but if you can get enough points onto your opponent from hitting him, get 10 points on it, you win the game, or they lose the game. It's a good way just to try to do an alpha strike with a ton of tokens and hopefully score a free win. Ruination, because we're mono red, very basic land base, a lot of mountains. Hopefully you can wreck everyone's non-basic land base, and from there you just try and crush them out for a win. In similarity with Blood Moon, often if you get it out really early and it sticks, it's very hard for your opponent to deal with it and get from out underneath it, and the goblins just can run rampant under the moon for that night. Couple combos you can run. Krenko with Thornbite Staff. Good old Thornbite, basically when it's equipped to a creature, whenever a creature dies, you untap the creature it's equipped to. So you have Krenko with that, he's just swinging his stick around, you know. You've got the Prospector here, who can sack goblins for mana. Tap Krenko, make a ton of goblins, sack one, a little bit of mana, never hurts. But then Krenko sees that goblin just off himself, untap Krenko, you make more goblins and just keep turning them to Beyblade, let it rip. Basically infinite goblins. Similar idea with Umbral Mantle, it's only 3 mana to play but it's 0 to equip, it's a little bit cheaper. But you have to have 3 mana to activate it. So you have to have like kind of a tipping point with the goblins. So you have to have at least 3 goblins to sack with the Prospector, but you have to have additional goblins to be able to generate a positive growth with the goblins. So the idea is Prospector will sack 3 goblins, 3 mana, feed your mana into the Umbral Mantle, you get to untap Krenko, then tap him again to make more goblins. Hopefully you pass that point we can make more than you started with. Now, the big brains, the head goblins, let's not give them too much credit than they're worth. Goblin King, 3 mana, just buff them all, mana to look, can come in handy, great with Blood Moon. Then you got Goblin Chieftain, who just buffs them all, gives them haste. Trash Master, just lets you wreck artifacts, plus his Lord effect. He's actually very scary in a commander game, the fact that goblins can be sacked, destroy target artifacts, go for people's land bases, go for their rocks, just make them cry. War Chief makes your goblins cheaper and gives them haste. Having this haste is really good. Then you got Mux as the Goblin King, if you will. He lets you cheat goblins from the top of your deck into play. Really good with Goblin Recruiter, who can tutor for goblins and lets you stack them top of your library in any order, so you can cheat him in great with this guy. Plus when he attacks, he gets huge for all the other goblins you got. Mons makes a great option if we're losing goblins. Whenever a goblin or Mons itself dies, deal 1 damage to any target. Makes it very hard for your opponent to trade with him, considering they might hit him for 1, but when they explode, they deal additional 1 damage to wherever you need to. Makes it very annoying to deal with. Plus, can generate goblins itself by sacking any goblin to create 2 more goblins. So just feed a goblin token in to make 2. And then Goblin War Driver. With that battle cry, every time you're just attacking, buff them up a little bit more. I kind of like the flavorful idea of Goblin Lookout with Goblin Caves and the Quest for the Goblin Lord. Kind of setting up their home where they're chilling and vibing. The idea is a lookout, you tap in himself and you're sacking a goblin, but from that all other goblins get 2/0. So 2 goblins to keep all your other goblins buffed up by 2. Pretty good. And then you got Goblin Caves, which you have to put on a mountain, but it gives all goblins 0/2, which makes them oddly tanky, kind of hard to deal with. With this out, base goblins are 1/3s, which is kind of weird. Most goblins, you know, are like 3/1s or oddly high in power but low in toughness. They can tank a lot more than they should be able to. You can actually like single file line them up into big threats and just chunk big damage coming in. Then you got Quest for the Goblin Lord. You have to have at least 5 goblins come into play for it to activate for the quest counters on it. But it gives all your goblins 2/0, which again, it's a huge power buff for a 1 mana enchantment. Get out nice and early and laugh. Or even mid-late game. Getting it out and then activating Krenko will just instantly turn it on in most cases. Now, the smart goblins. I don't like to give them that much credit. They're goblins after all. But when I do a goblin deck, I like it to be flavorful. I like to have just goblins that can do things. You don't want just tokens or token generators. I want my goblins to be on the board, contributing in other ways than just being there. So like I mentioned before, the Prospector, he's sacking goblins for mana, feed him into him. The Goblin Surgeon, sack a goblin to regenerate target creature. Your goblin tokens protect the other key goblins. Really powerful effect. He's worth his weight in gold. Then you got the Mog Raider and Goblin Slayer that you sack goblins to buff other creatures. Use it to buff goblins that would be lost in undesirable trades in combat. or maybe get one goblin through to kill a planeswalker, or trade with other creatures, or maybe just enough to finish off your opponent. You can alpha strike with these cards. Okay, I totally forgot Kiki-Jiki. I don't know how I did it. I'm going to slot him right in here because he works well with the Snoop. Kiki-Jiki, 5 mana goblin, he's a king. Haste, he can make copies of other things to end a turn that are not legendary. He works great with most goblins, where they get you more bodies on the floor, more lord effects, more buffing, just good value. Works well with the Snoop. Snoop lets you play off the top of your library. He can play goblin spells only, but he has all the activated abilities of the goblins that you can see on top. Works great with Kiki-Jiki. But the Snoop works really well with Goblin Recruiter here, who lets you tutor your library for goblin cards, and then reveal them, then stack them on top of your library in any order. So of course Snoop can play all of them basically. Matron gets Goblin Strength to your hand, you can't really complain with that. The Bloodmark Mentor gives all your red creatures first strike. Goblins with first strike just even better. Then you've got the Goblin Stinger, who oddly enough lets you bounce back creatures as a goblin, really good effect, just unsummon their commander. You got Goblin Crater Maker, which is pretty much here to wreck artifacts or colorless planeswalkers. Spikejaw Elder, something I like playing with. He's only a 1/1 for 1, nothing flavorful, but he can pay 3 mana to deal damage equal to his power to anything. When you have enough Lord effects going on, maybe sack a few goblins with Goblin Slayer into them, really start jacking them up, and then paying 3 mana just to maybe crunch something for 10 damage becomes really good. You can actually just burn your opponent out with him if you need to. Good old Warren Instigator, he hits opponent twice with double strike and then lets you cheat 2 goblins from your hand into play, plus all the Lord effects and Goblin Slayer and buffing effects. He can become like a 10/10 with double strike. He becomes a really big threat your opponent has to deal with. Then you got more token producers like Krenko's Command and Dragon Fodder, just here's 2 goblins each. You got the War Marshal and the Instigator here that both bring tokens with them, just more bodies for Krenko to see and to check and make more tokens with. And more combat focused guys, you've got the Pile Driver who has Pro Blue, but when he attacks he gets 2/0 for each other attacking goblin. He becomes a big threat, God forbid his Pro Blue comes in handy. You got the Loyalist with the Battalion effect, giving all your dudes first strike, trample, and can't be blocked by other tokens. Makes him great in the token matchup. Then you got the Street Denizen, who just gets swole every time red creatures enter your battlefield. You activate Krenko, boom, like 10 golems into the battlefield. He's now an 11/1, just a big fat boy to deal with. Beetleback Chief just brings more goblins too. And the Brush Haunter, he's probably one of the more expensive goblins in the deck, but he's kind of fun. He's indestructible, and when he's dealt damage, he deals that much damage to target opponent, so you can start reflecting damage in a way. Plus he fights with all the Lord effects too, he becomes pretty good. Alright, goblins aren't too smart, but they have a couple great tools in the deck. Goblin Sharpshooter can really start bleeding and burning things dead. Every time you lose a goblin, you get to untap him, which he has tap, deal damage to target creature or player. Just wreck planeswalkers, smaller creatures, just start trickling that damage in. Then you got Goblin Bombardment, which you can sack creatures, or in this case goblins, to deal 1 damage wherever you need. Good to finish off things you don't want to fight, trade unfavorably, just chip away planeswalkers in your opponent's life, all that good stuff. Impact Tremors, just activate Krenko. Here's 10 goblins, your opponent loses 10 life. I'm gonna go that way pretty quick. Coda's Banner, great in a mono tribal deck like this. You equip the creature, all other creatures that share a color and a tribe get pretty much 2/2. So every goblin with this equipment, 2/2. Can't go wrong. Mass Hysteria, don't know whether I like this or Fever, or Feather, however you pronounce it. It's 1 mana, all creatures have haste, or the other version is 3 mana, only your creatures have haste. I do like the aggro nature of this. Then you've got Torbrand, who just buffs all your red damage sources by 2. If a goblin gets through, he does an extra 2 damage. If you hit them with a burn spell or Goblin Bombardment, you're doing 3 damage instead of 1. Sure thing. And then for protection, Helm of the Host is nutty, multiple Krenkos. Probably a bit overkill, but not even Krenko, just even your Lords. Any goblin having more copies of it is a good thing. Then you got both the booties here just to protect Krenko from direct removal. Now, goblins don't draw very well. It's, you know, it's red draw, it's not really draw. But you got the Oracle here, who we can sack creatures to play for top card of our library to end a turn. Better than nothing. Rummaging Goblin, where we ditch cards to draw cards. Slave Ancestry is probably our best thing. You can ditch your hand to draw cards with a number of creatures you control. After a big fat Krenko activation, you can maybe draw like 10 cards or something. You got good old Faith of Looting. You know, you got Banned in Modern, it's that good. Then you got the Insight here, just ditch a land to draw 2 cards for 1 mana. Hey, in red, we'll take that. In good old Reforged Soul, Miracle, everyone ditches a hand and draws back up to 7. I can't believe this is a $10 card now. I remember it used to be like 50 cents. But in Commander, you can see why it's worth this money. Goblin Magic, they're not very good at it, but they give it a go. Mob Justice, 2 mana to deal damage equal to the number of creatures you control to the target opponent. That just can close games with the Krenko. I love Last Ditch Effort, very flavorful with goblins, kind of what they're trying to do. So you just sack them all out near end game and hopefully you have enough goblins just to burn your opponent dead. For 1 mana, it's pretty good. Goblin Grenade, 1 mana, sack goblin, deal 5 damage to anything. Again, you can just crunch something, a planeswalker, a big threat, your opponent's face, and whatever works. And Gem Palm Incinerator. You're gonna cycle all day long, you're never playing him, but when you cycle him, deals X damage to the target creature with X number of goblins in play. Like, that's just gonna burn any creature dead instantly. Brightstone Ritual, oddly, is good ramp in a goblin deck. Like, 1 mana for each goblin in play, just boom, 20 mana, no problem. And Vandal Blast and a Braid for a little bit of artifact hate / burn. Okay, near the end here for mana ramp, we do run Ruby Medallion, just making your entire deck 1 mana less to cast. Soul Ring and Fire Diamond, your mono red deck, that's what you can run. But for draw, we run Mind Stone, Hedron Archive, and Commander Sphere. Mana Rocks in the early mid game, late game, just sack him out, draw cards. And we run Hall of the Bandit Lord because if you use it to cast Krenko, Krenko will come in with haste, just makes him that bit better. I do like the Sanctum here because yes, it takes 2 turns to do the combo, but for 6 mana, you can make a creature that's legendary, so Krenko, a god and indestructible. Like, I guess, yeah, like it's protection in a land slot. Dust Bowl, late game, start sacking our lands to destroy the non-basics. We have just mountains that we won't need. Really, a goblin deck doesn't need more than 5-6 lands. Like after that, it's a thing. We're top decking mode anyway, so just start sacking lands to wreck their lands. Path of Ancestry just offers scry in a land slot because we're sticking to a mono tribe. Easy. Mirrored Landscape, of course you sack it, get 2 lands out of your deck. The Sandstone Needle is a pretty greedy land, hence the artwork depicting it on the edge. Only has 2 counters on it, so you get 2 activations, but every time you're activating it, you're getting 2 mana back. So only 2 uses out of it, but it gets Krenko out that a little bit earlier. Terrain Generator just lets you play basics from your hand onto the battlefield, good in a simple mono deck like this. And we have a bit of draw in the land slot too. We've got War Room where we draw based on our commander's color identity, so we're going to take 1 damage for 3 mana and draw a card. The Center of Sea, everyone draws a card. The Throne brings in Monarch to the table, which in a token deck is pretty easy to protect because you never want to get through, hopefully. And then we've got the Arc, which with Ascend, easy enough to activate in a Goblin deck. And we run 23 basic mountains. Yep, that's Krenko. Pretty easy commander deck, just throw goblins in and then throw those said goblins at said problem. Goblins, easy to do, easy to win. Goblins are pretty budget friendly, but if you want to increase your land slots, like have draw in the land slot, maybe haste in the land slot, it gets pretty expensive pretty quickly. And for the most part, there's not that many key goblins that are expensive, maybe a few dollars here. You can build a goblin deck on the cheap and it will work pretty well too. Alright, I can't believe I never covered him before. Like, it's Krenko, he's one of my first commanders. How have I not done this? Oh well, have a good one guys, let me know your thoughts and see you later. Ta-ta.